Rules for a Knight by Ethan Hawke. Chapter 13. Generosity. You were born owning nothing, and with nothing you will pass out of this life. Be frugal, and you can be generous. There have always been two ways to be rich, by accumulating vast sums or by needing very little. Possessions can be, and most often are, a distraction from the real work of a knight's life. A lion doesn't own anything at all, yet we all know his power. If a knight has amassed personal wealth, he does not weigh his spirit down with trunks of gold. Give freely and easily to all allies in the struggle for a just world, where no child goes uneducated or unfed, where the health of everyone is responsibly cared for, and where ideas are openly and richly expressed. Give aid to all who are working towards vigorous stewardship of our land, waters, and animals. Do not waste money on extravagances. A knight knows there are too many who are suffering to take pleasure in being frivolous. If a knight finds himself without a full purse, he does not overly concern himself with this either. The quality of a lady's character determines her worth, not the coins in her purse or the price of her garments. The peregrine falcon is the swiftest, most adept animal I have ever seen. It is worth noting that, like many birds, the falcon's bones are hollow. Travel light. Once, Sir Richard and I were sent up to the far north of Scotland to help in a time of famine. A camp set up by missionaries was to house hundreds of displaced people who had lost their homes due to a storm of drought, war, and disease. Here I became aware of poverty on a scale that I had not previously known. Families were living in utter squalor. The smell of death was potent. Mud, filth, vermin, and despair seemed to be multiplying in the wells and in the dry riverbeds. No fathers were to be found. One starving child looked up at Richard and me as we passed above him high on our horses. Richard handed the boy some sweet bread Alexander had made us. Instead of devouring the cake as we imagined he would, the boy held it carefully in his hands, sprinted to his two younger siblings, and divided the bread into 3 pieces. Never had I witnessed such profound and simple generosity. I no longer felt pity for this starving young boy. I admired him. My character had never been tested like his, and if it ever was, I hoped I would respond with his integrity. Many of the king's knights orient the work of their orders around the accumulation of wealth. Many great knights have indeed been extremely affluent, but I don't know of one fabulously rich knight who collects his own taxes. Your grandfather was unusual in his position on the dangers attached to wealth. He loathed the tax collecting, but refused to turn a blind eye to those from whose pockets his money came. He always did the messy work of his life with his own hands. Whenever doubt would arise over the accuracy of our scale, grandfather would allow each farmer to oversee the weighing of his crops. Many times I used to go with him from home to visit the families who lived on our land. He knew each child's name and was aware of the details of every family's life. I remember once as we were touring our district, grandfather made me note how much laughter we heard. He said, "A hearty laugh is the telltale sign of good health." That Christmas, he and I attended a banquet hosted by the wealthiest knight of London, the Duke of Dorchester. "Did you hear it?" Grandfather asked me as we left the Duke's cavernous halls. "Hear what?" I answered. There was no ingenuous laughter, he said under his breath. There were cruel cackles and snide sniggers. Sometimes I think the more wealth people accumulate, the less they laugh. He leaned in close, whispering, and the more they fear death. He took a pause, considering what he had said. I've begun to be dubious of any invitation that requires me to buy new clothes. Around this time, due to his accomplishments in battle and immense popularity, grandfather was asked to be Bishop of Cornwall. Everyone perceived this as a lucrative promotion that would confer prestige, honor, and wealth. But grandfather thought it was absurd that religious positions were offered to men without a background in the ministry, and managed to quietly pass on the opportunity. I am happy where I am, he confided to me. I have friends, I'm good at what I do, and that is enough. Then he added, besides, I've never known a funny bishop. End of chapter 13.